Whether you're a longtime fan, a young kid, or a parent, it's undeniable that most, if not all of the movies released by Pixar Animation Studios have become pillars in the building blocks of so many kids' formative years throughout the world. That said, while these movies will be remembered largely for their whimsical plots, emotional scenes, and masterful writing, we'll never forget those dark and, at times, twisted moments that really made us go, whoa, did they really go there? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and these are the top 15 darkest Pixar moments that crossed the line. But first, I'd like to tell you about a cool new project that we're working on here at Wicked Binge. As you know by now, we love cartoons and animation. It's why we made the channel. We love discussing and counting down the best cartoons, as well as learning theories about our favorite shows. And thanks to our amazing subscribers, we've grown quite a bit over the last few months, and we've been considering new formats. In addition to the videos that we do here on the channel, which I promise you will continue as frequently as ever, sometimes we have ideas for short form videos as well. So when I started looking at ways to experiment with this type of content, I stumbled upon Amino app, and specifically its story feature, which allows users to create stories that don't disappear like they do in other places. And while inquiring about how it worked, Amino actually reached back out to me and offered us a partnership to create our own stories on the app, which is awesome. I really dig the app and the format, and I think that you will too. So if it's something that you guys do like, we're gonna keep publishing stories over there, while of course keeping up the same video output over here. Click the link in the description or pinned YouTube comments, or search Amino apps to download Amino. Find our stories by searching Wicked Binge. Make sure to follow us and click the bell icon to know when we're posting new videos. Just like YouTube, every time you watch a video, you'll be supporting our channel. So if you enjoy Wicked Binge, this is a simple, free way to help us out. Just to recap, click the link in the description or pinned YouTube comment, or search for Amino apps to download Amino. Find our stories by searching Wicked Binge, follow us, and watch our best Pixar villains story, and just by doing that, you'll be supporting this channel. And don't forget to tap the bell to turn on notifications to never miss an upload. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to that, and with all that said, let's dig into the top 15 darkest Pixar moments that cross the line.
Boss-looking alien! Where?
Number 15. Toy Story 4, Forky's Existential Crisis. Let's kick things off with something a bit dark, be it kind of humorous, from Pixar's latest film, Toy Story 4. Forky, who was created by Bonnie like a weird little Frankenstein experiment, comes to life as a toy. But there's something dark about his own meaninglessness, or at least how he perceives himself as meaningless, to the point where he actually understands that he's trash.
I was made for soup, salad, maybe chili, and then the trash.
Forky is a funny, goofy character, but that level of self-loathing is just a bit depressing. I mean, if you thought that the existential thoughts of toys were bad, imagine thinking that you were designed to be a one-time use spork and then converted into garbage. Number 14, A Bug's Life, Eaten Alive. Hopper was, in many ways, one of the most evil Pixar villains out there. He was, after all, a genuine dictator who ruled through violence and terror.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
But even so, his demise was pretty ruthless. We're not saying that we feel bad for him, because, we don't. But watching him scream in horror as a bird delivers him to her babies to feast upon, it's grim to say the least. But then again, I suppose it doesn't usually end well for dictators. Whether it's getting beheaded, backed into a bunker until you blow your brains out, or even getting eaten alive by adorable baby birds, dictators typically go out pretty rough. Number 13, Monsters Inc., when Sully thought Boo died. Now, while many will remember Monsters Inc. for its comedic scenes featuring Sully and Mike's monster shenanigans as they try their best to return Boo to safety after she escapes from her room, there is one scene that will forever be etched into our minds, namely the one where Sully thinks that Boo got killed in a garbage grinder. Now, viewers knew that she wasn't dead as she managed to escape in the nick of time, but Sully didn't. As heart-wrenching as it is to even think that Boo would have met her end as a pile of crushed, compacted, recycled mush, seeing Sully's dramatic reaction is the real dark part.
I can still hear her little voice.
To make matters worse, the sad music played in the background during the scene doesn't do anything to ease the sorrow. Number 12, Toy Story 4, Where Dragon Roams. Of all the Toy Story films, we'd say that Toy Story 4 is the lightest. Although it's as fun and entertaining, it's not as dark as Toy Story 3, or really as emotional as the franchise as a whole. With that said, there's a quick scene involving Dragon the cat in the antique shop. When Woody, Bo, Ducky, and Bunny are trying to rescue Forky, they encounter the remains of a fellow stuffed animal, ripped to absolute shreds and lifeless on the floor, provoking a terrified reaction from fellow stuffed animals Ducky and Bunny.
Is that how we look on the inside? There's so much fluff.
To them, that is a mutilated corpse. Number 11, Toy Story 2, Jessie's Song. Up next is a tragically sad scene from Toy Story 2 that I'm sure melted your heart beyond recognition. I'm talking about the scene where Jessie sings a sad song about being abandoned by her owner. Well, in all fairness, sad is a real understatement because the scene tugs at every metaphorical string that your heart has. Capturing the tragedy of someone whom you love and cherish replacing you isn't an easy challenge, and it's an incredibly grim theme for a kid's film to explore. And as much as the vocal performance on this song is worthy of praise, the really definitive elements of it are the expression of the song's lyrics combined with the emotion that Jessie injects into the song, tearing it apart in the process. It's almost as if viewers are bearing witness to the public unveiling of her very soul.
You never forget kids like Emily or Andy, but they forget you.
Why do you do this to us, Pixar? Number 10, Toy Story, Buzz Learns the Truth. If there's one thing that Toy Story as a series isn't short on, it's the deep-rooted, brutal, existential crisis. With Forky, there was at least the growth of going from believing he's trash to believing he's a toy. There's a positive outcome. With Buzz Lightyear, realizing the brutal truth that he isn't a space ranger but a mere toy flips the outcome into a negative one. Sure, he accepts it and finds happiness, but given how masterfully done the writing is in the first Toy Story, this plot point not only hits you emotionally, but it's really, really dark. Knowing that Woody, who was essentially his enemy at this point, was right all along, and that his identity and purpose were a complete and total lie.
You are a child's plaything!
That is a heavy thing for a kid's movie.
Clearly I will go sailing no more.
Number 9, Cars 2, Torque being tortured and killed. It's not every day that a kid's film portrays rather gruesome and mature content for its viewing audience, so when Cars 2 showed a scene of a car being tortured silly and eventually killed, understandably so, quite a few felt that it was too advanced for children. In the movie, we see Torque being held by Professor Z, who toys with him by subjecting the former to a grueling torture that is, to put it nicely, hard to watch. With each shuddering vibration that we see on screen, viewers can't help but close their eyes as they try not to watch the agony that Torque is going through. Then, of course, there's the whole issue of him being executed at the end.
You will find the second agent and kill him.
I mean, I know we're looking at Cars, but geez, that's still pretty violent. Number 8, Inside Out, Bing Bong sacrifices himself. For fans of Inside Out, perhaps the worst moment in the film is when Bing Bong, Riley's imaginary best friend, opts to take the plunge for her, sacrificing himself so Joy could go on. As he jumps off the wagon and Joy flies high up to the top, we as viewers share in the pain of Joy's realization that Bing Bong was indeed sacrificing himself. This becomes a gloomy metaphor for how little parts of us slowly fade away and die as we get older. It's not graphic, it's not violent, it's just soul-sucking. I mean, when he waves a final goodbye and says this,
Take her to the moon for me, okay?
tragic? Yes. Dark? Without a doubt. Tearjerker? Absolutely. Number 7, Ratatouille, The Window of Dead Rats. When you move to the big city, some things can take a little adjusting to. Still, no one could have prepared Remy for what he saw when he just moved to Paris. In Ratatouille, Remy's dad shows him just how cruel the world can be to rats if they're not careful. Just as he does that, a light shines upon a window display revealing the dead bodies of rats hanging lifelessly. Understandably so, Remy is shaken beyond measure. Words can't begin to describe describe the extent of the agony and pain he felt upon seeing the loss of his kind. To us viewers, looking at it strictly from a sanitary point of view, obviously the elimination of rats is a benefit to mankind. But in a Pixar film, we're witnessing the aftermath of mass execution.
When all is said and done, we're all we've got.
Corpses on display as a warning to other rats. This is some medieval level violent imagery as far as kids movies go. Number 6. The Incredibles, no capes.
No capes!
Isn't it incredible to be Mr. Incredible? Well, not when you're missing your cape. It's part of what makes him look and feel, well, incredible. However, things get really dark in the movie when Edna denies him his cape and goes through a detailed account of why he is not being granted one. And no, it's not because it will enhance his incredibleness. Actually, according to her, it's a hazard that could lead to the loss of his life.
When his cape snagged on a missile pin.
Viewers are then shown the tragic ending that some superheroes who mistakenly wore their capes suffered, with one even being sucked into the propeller of an airplane.
Cape caught in a jet turbine.
Although viewers never saw blood or gore in these scenes, knowing that superheroes met such a grim end doesn't exactly scream roses, cupcakes, and unicorns in this movie. And honestly, what's great about it is the montage is showcased in a comedic light. It's legitimate, violent, dark humor. Did Quentin Tarantino sneak in and rewrite this scene? I like to think so. Number 5. Toy Story, the toys get tortured. Let's all sit back and remember the toy torture scene. You don't remember? Not surprising. To be honest, it's difficult to internalize that a kid's movie could have portrayed something as vile and cruel as that, so you may have blocked it out.
Genie's all better now.
For every sadistic, evil act of torture that Sid committed against Woody and his other toys, we had to ask ourselves, is this really what I think it is? And yes, you were bearing witness to the portrayal of toy cruelty. The brilliance of Toy Story was being able to create these sorts of mature, violent scenes under the disguise of toys. This is nothing in the real world, but from the perspective of Woody and Buzz, they're witnessing something straight out of Saw or Hostel. To them, Sid is a serial killer, and they know of him already because of his violent notoriety. The worst thing about this is that these toys are alive and can feel each and every part of their torture administered to them by their cruel owner. Did you ever break one of your toys when you were a kid or blow one up with a firecracker? Well, you're a monster! Number 4. WALL-E Alone. The sequence of WALL-E and the post-apocalyptic disaster that is Earth is truly one of the saddest sequences that you'll ever see. One that is a total representation of loneliness and isolation that many of us have felt at some point. WALL-E looks and feels lonely. There are no humans left on Earth. All there is WALL-E, a fun, adorable robot whose sole task is to clean up the mess that humans left behind. We watch him clean past the corpses of his own kind and utilize their remains to stay alive himself. In the whole sequence, there are really two distinct types of losses that are presented. The first is the portrayal of a good guy who feels lost in a world where he has no one to call a friend. Then there's the loss of humanity done by our very own mistreatment of the environment. The entire backdrop of the movie is depressing, yet still beautiful at the same time. Number 3. Up. Ellie's death. When it comes to emotionally heavy plot development in kids' films, there is none quite like the one that we see in Up. Everything about this movie just makes you reach for the box of tissue and sob from start to finish. And full disclosure, if this was a saddest moments list, this would be number 1. In fact, we put this as number 1 in our saddest Pixar moments video. But in addition to that, the scene is also very dark. The movie starts off with a melancholic beginning, the silent montage that lets us know the tragedy which befell Carl in his life. Then we bear witness to the first tragic incident. As the story of Carl's life unfolds, we learn that after marrying his high school sweetheart Ellie, in their first attempt to have a baby, Ellie has a miscarriage. And as much as a miscarriage is tragic enough, it gets worse. Ellie ends up passing away, leaving Carl alone at the end of his life. Tragic, depressing, sad, all of these words perfectly describe the tragedy that we know to be Carl's life. Number 2. Finding Nemo, a family massacre. Although most people will remember Finding Nemo for the heroic adventures of Marlin and Dory as they search the ocean for Nemo, there is another facet to this movie that few will be forgetting anytime soon. Remember the intro scene where we see what happened to Nemo's mother and siblings? Of course you do. You can't forget how unbelievably somber it was. It's the perfect example of a mother's sacrifice for her children. Coral, Nemo's mother, goes down fighting against a barracuda who ate not only her, but her 400 eggs as well. All that was left was Nemo.
Coral, get inside the house, Coral.
Essentially, Nemo lost all of his siblings and mother, and that was just how the movie opened. Seeing the pain and anguish on Marlin's face during the flashback is too much for the ordinary viewer to bear. Disney movies were known well for killing off parents, and Pixar basically said, "Hold my beer."
I promise I will never let anything happen to you, Nemo.
Number 1, Toy Story 3, The Incinerator. This scene is really just something on a whole other level. It's crafted so masterfully that you actually think for a moment that Woody, Buzz, and everyone else would meet their end being pushed into a giant fiery incinerator. It's as if Pixar brought you right up to the gates of hell before closing them and saying, "Psych," but it's the way that it's done. First off, Lotso Huggenbear is an absolute psychopath. After getting to the high ground, instead of stopping the tracks, he simply looks down with a sadistic smile that says, "Hey guys, have fun burning to death. Fire." And the way the friends all hold hands and accept their impending death together is just beyond dark. It's heartbreaking, but also something that you just would not expect from a kids movie. Even by the standards of Pixar, which has never shied away from being dark. The incinerator scene is ruthless, and that's why it gets our pick for number 1. But what do you think about our countdown? What scene from a Pixar movie do you think is the absolute darkest? Let us know in the comments section below. And remember to check out our best Pixar villain story over on our Amino app. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, but most importantly, stay wicked.